Story 1. Overheard my wife telling her friend she regrets settling with me. So imagine me, a 26-year-old guy, just going about my day, right? Life's usual stuff. But then, this one day, something totally unexpected happens. I'm walking past our bedroom, not thinking much about anything. My wife, who's 24 by the way, is on the phone. She's deep in conversation, totally doesn't notice me. Now, normally I wouldn't eavesdrop. That's not cool. But something in her tone just grabs my attention. She's talking to her best friend, someone who's pretty important to her, someone who's in this serious relationship, kind of looking for advice. My wife, she starts talking about making choices and not settling. She's like, "You've got to choose carefully. Don't make the mistake I did." And then, bam, she drops this bombshell about me. She says, "I settled for him. He was my last resort, my plan B when there was no one else left to consider. If I had known better, who knows who I could have ended up with." And she uses my name, making it crystal clear she's talking about us, our marriage. Hearing this hit me like a truck. It's like one moment I'm just a guy walking past a room, and the next I feel like my heart's been split in two. It was devastating. It made me start questioning everything. Does she really love me? Or am I just the safe choice she made? Why do I suddenly feel like I'm the second prize in a competition where everyone else dropped out? I've been wrestling with these thoughts since then. Am I overreacting? Being too sensitive? I mean, everyone has doubts, right? But this feels big. It's not just a small worry. It's a giant question mark over everything we've built. I haven't brought it up with her. Part of me is scared to find out if my worst fears are true. And honestly, I just don't know how to even start that conversation. It's weird. You go through life thinking you're on the same page with the person you love most in the world. Then out of the blue you hear something like this, and it shakes everything. I keep replaying her words in my head, trying to figure out if there's any way I misunderstood. But it's hard to see it any other way. It's like I'm suddenly seeing our whole relationship through a different lens, and I'm not sure what to do with all these feelings. So yeah, that's what's been eating at me. A simple, overheard conversation has turned into this huge thing that I can't shake off. It's made me question my worth, our relationship, and whether the love I thought was rock solid might not be as steady as I believed. It's a lot to process, and I'm just trying to figure out the best way forward, if there even is one. Now, for the top advice before the full update. Be your first choice. Yep, confront her. But if she thinks she's settling, and you're not her first choice, then you need to find someone else who doesn't think that. There's not a lot of confronting you can do. You can't talk someone out of that line of thought. I'd say something on the way out of the house, but that's it. Freaking brutal. I am so sorry to hear that. You should really talk to her about it. You should never be somebody's last resort. If that's how she really feels, maybe that relationship isn't working. She's only going to backtrack and start minimizing it. I expect to hold this view means you don't respect the other person. Never mind love them. You're a placeholder of regret. Some words can't be unsaid. How can she now prove to him that those words were not true? And if they are, they killed the relationship there and then. Talking feels like necromancy on this one. I'm really confused by why she would say you were her last resort when she's only 24. Did she have a deadline to meet or something around this age? I notice that people are getting quick to want to settle down and be in long-term relationships without any serious consideration for them because they start realizing that we are truly in adulthood. I'm 242, and I notice there's a lot of pressure to get serious about life, and people always ask about marriage, relationships, kids, etc. She probably felt pressured to get married. Not saying pressured by OP, just in general. Maybe she saw a lot of her friends get married, so she decided that she needs to as well. Maybe she didn't want to feel left out. Maybe she wanted the attention from social media. Who knows? She sounds pretty vapid, and she's only going to regret putting OP through this. I hope he looks into getting divorced. Now for the updates. Thank you all so much for the support and the kind messages. It really means a lot to me and has helped lift my spirits during a tough time. I've decided it's time to have a chat with her about everything I overheard. It's pretty wild to think how much encouragement and advice I've gotten from people all over the internet who don't even know me. That's been incredibly comforting. I get why some might doubt if my story is real. It does sound like something out of a movie or a drama series, doesn't it? But it's all happening in my life, for real. We've been engaged for more than a year and a half and only tied the knot 3 months ago. It's still a bit surreal to me calling her my wife, you know? And just to keep things under wraps, I used a different account for posting this because she's also on Reddit and might come across it. Thanks again to everyone for all the advice. It's pretty amazing to see how much strangers are willing to help. I'm planning to have the conversation with her today, and I'll make sure to update you all afterward on how it went. So the update you've been waiting for, I finally did it. Had one of the most difficult conversations of my life this morning, right after breakfast. I told her we needed to sit down and have a serious talk. She seemed a bit wary at first but agreed, understanding it was important. We settled in the living room, and before I could even start, she hit me with, "I already know what this is about. It feels like I've taken the first step in addressing something huge between us. It's a bit scary but also a relief to start bringing everything out into the open. We'll keep you posted on how things progress from here." My story got really popular, so much so that it ended up being one of the first things you see when you check what's trending. And guess who saw it? Yep, my wife. She was just scrolling through, saw the post, and immediately realized it was about us. She started crying a lot right after that. I had already shared in my post how hurt I was because of something she said about me, thinking I wouldn't hear, but now she had seen what I wrote and knew exactly how I felt. When we talked, she was crying and trying to say that she was just kidding when she said those things. She told me she didn't mean any of it. She kept telling me over and over, "I love you. I love you." She was trying to convince me that what we have is real and that she truly cares about me. But to me, it didn't feel right. It felt like she wasn't being honest. She was just saying things to try and make the situation better. She kept saying how she didn't want to lose me, but I had already made up my mind. I told her that I didn't think being married to each other was the right choice for us. It was a tough conversation, but I explained that I knew what she really thought about our relationship and that it wasn't fair to me. It felt like she was just playing games with my feelings. And for those who are curious, we don't have any kids, and I'm the one who takes care of our apartment and pretty much everything we own except for her personal stuff, like her clothes. After everything got really intense between us because of what I posted online and our big talk, there's another part of the story you see. I actually take care of a lot of things financially, including paying for her car. So with all that's been happening, if we end up going our separate ways, she wouldn't have much left from before we were married. But here's the kicker, we signed a prenup before getting married. At that moment when all of this was happening, I was actually really relieved we did that. It was like one of those moments when you realize you made a super smart decision. Then things got really quiet for a few seconds. Super awkward silence, and out of nowhere she hits me with a "F you." She started yelling like never before, really losing her temper. She was telling me things like, "You just can't do this," and getting really upset. I stood my ground, though. I told her I was free to make my own choices, and that's when things really escalated. She shouted at me, saying that being with me was the worst relationship she's ever had. She was all like, "You think I won't be able to find someone else? Do you actually believe you'll ever find anyone as good as me? You're an idiot." She even used my name to make sure it hit hard. Right after saying all that, she grabbed her bag and phone, basically storming out and slammed the door super loud as she left. So there I was, feeling like I'd just become the main character in one of those super dramatic TV shows you watch when you need a good cry or a laugh, except it wasn't funny at all. I found myself sitting on the couch just breaking down and crying. And as I'm writing this to you, I'm still crying. It's this weird mix of feeling a bit relieved but also really, really sad. These tears are kind of like saying goodbye to what I thought my life was going to be like. Deep down, I kind of always knew that she might end up cheating on me or just leaving. It's a harsh truth, but it's become clear that she never really loved me the way I thought she did. Looking back, it feels like everything was just one-sided, and I'm kicking myself for not realizing it sooner. I'm in California, and I've decided I'm going to start the process to annul our marriage. It's a big step, but it feels like the right thing to do. And tomorrow I'm going to start packing up her things into trash bags. Now, I'm not being spiteful or anything. I'm not throwing her stuff out. The trash bags are just what I'm using to gather her belongings so I can give them back to her. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting me through this. Reading your kind words and taking your advice has given me the strength to stand up for myself. It's been incredibly tough, but knowing that there are people out there who care, even if they don't really know me, means the world. I believe things are going to get better from here. Your support has been a light in a very dark time, and for that, I'm truly grateful. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Biological mother abandoned me at 10, so I was raised by an amazing surrogate. Now, when I'm 18, she's back wanting to reconnect after I inherited Grandpa's mansion. Hello everyone. My name is Daniela, 17F. I live with my surrogate mother, CIA 45F. I consider her my actual mother instead of my biological mother, who abandoned me when I was 10. My biological mother, Eli 41F, and my father were in love. However, their life goals were a bit different. Eli did not want to give birth, but my father desperately wanted to be a dad. Finally, they decided that they would just get a surrogate to deliver me, and that is exactly what happened. Throughout my childhood, my mother wasn't really present. Eli comes from a very rich family, so she just hired nannies for me who took care of me. On the other hand, I was the apple of my father's eye. He adored me and tried to spend as much time as he could with me, while also being busy with work. I remember missing him during the daytime when I had to spend time with my nanny instead of my family. We lived in a mansion owned by my grandpa, and it usually got lonely for me during the daytime. However, life became a whole lot more difficult when my dad got into a car crash when I was about 8. I remember Eli crying a lot, and on one occasion, I remember how she threw me out of the living room because I was annoying her. After my dad's death, everything was worse. I felt more alone than before. My mother soon moved on from my father while I was stuck in the huge mansion. My mother would go and party, buying herself expensive dresses and socializing. I felt very neglected, especially because my nannies weren't the most empathetic women either, and Eli didn't really care about how they treated me. I guess I became too much of a burden to her by the age of 10, when I became more and more vocal about my horrible nanny, who usually used to lock me in my room while she watched television in the other room. She rarely let me out to play and make friends, further causing me to feel lonely. My mother had had enough, and she told me how much she regretted having such an annoying kid. I clearly remember her telling me that she should just get rid of me, and she did. Within 2 weeks, a lady came up to pick me up. I had been very scared, but I remember not crying even once, but I really wanted to. I was scared that she would be mad like Eli if I cried in her presence. However, that woman changed my life. She made me slowly come out of my shell and realize that feeling emotions out loud was completely normal and healthy. I found out that she was my surrogate mother, CIA. For the sake of this post, I will call her CIA instead of Mom, which I usually call her because she is my mother in every sense of the word. CIA was everything that Eli was not. She was warm, she was loving, and most importantly, she liked having me around. It didn't take me long to start calling her Mom, especially because I was love-starved at that point, and she was the first person to show me such love in 2 years. Ever since my dad's death. She played with me, she looked out for me, she even taught me how to cook, which is what I will be pursuing in my life. She ignited the passion for cooking I currently have. She supports me in every aspect of my life, even to this date. I remember that I first trusted her after she helped me assemble my books on the bookshelf she had gotten just for me. At my house with Eli, I had plenty of books and bookshelves, but with CIA, I realized their real worth. CIA wasn't rich, but later I found out that Eli paid CIA monthly to take care of me and to keep her mouth shut about me. When it had been a few months and I and CIA had started acting like actual mother and daughter, she had gone back to Eli to ask for my full-time custody. Eli had gotten rid of me without even batting an eye, as if CIA had done her a favor by taking me away. We lived comfortably on Eli's money for almost 8 years until she tried to come back into my life. I had been home alone yesterday when Eli had shown up at my door. Initially, I hadn't recognized her at all. However, eventually I did. I didn't want to welcome her in, but knew that CIA would be very disappointed if I did not greet a guest, even if the guest was someone I wasn't thrilled to see. With respect, I immediately called CIA to come over. In the time it took CIA to come over, I offered Eli water while she looked around the house with a disgusted look. I looked around with her, trying to see everything from her perspective. Our living room was rugged but homey. It was enough for me and CIA. It wasn't anything like Eli's living room in that mansion, but it was enough. By the time CIA arrived, I was feeling very uncomfortable with the woman who was actually my mother but had never treated me like her daughter. Eli demanded that I go back with her. The demand came so out of the blue that I took a step back. I was so confused and didn't understand where this sentiment was coming from, but most importantly, I was afraid that CIA would give me back like Eli had abandoned me. I am ashamed of feeling that way. CIA immediately shot that down. She reminded Eli that she had handed over my custody to her, and in the eyes of the law, I was CIA's daughter. Eli says that she knows that she signed those papers, but she wants me to come back. She readily offered CIA a hefty sum of money that I won't mention here. I and CIA were taken aback by Eli's emotionless behavior. CIA took a deep breath as if she was getting ready to talk to a toddler who was insisting on buying a toy they couldn't have. CIA told Eli that she had no rights to me and that she was not going to let her take me away from her, whatever the amount of money she offered. I felt so relieved when she made that clear to her. Eli stood determined and said that it wasn't her decision to make and turned it on me. I was furious when she asked me if I would like to return with her, as if she had ever shown me any kind of love. I screamed that no, I would not wish to come back to her. She treated me so badly. She tried to convince me that she had a lot of money and I would live in comfort if I chose to come with her. I told her that if she thought that it would convince me to go with her, she was crazy and knew nothing about family. Eli sighed as if we both were being unreasonable and told us that she would leave her mobile number behind for when we changed our minds. She also mentioned that the money she was offering was negotiable. Can you believe the audacity of my biological mother? How dare she just show up at my house a few months before my birthday, and she treated me without any emotions, too, like I was just a minor annoyance she wished not to have to deal with. But that doesn't make sense because if that were true, why would she be here at all? What were her real motives? Does she really want to reconnect or feel guilty for abandoning me? Honestly, if that were true, I don't think I would return back with her. I love CIA too much. She is my mother. I have seen her reading college pamphlets for culinary arts behind my back. She was the one trying to get me a job at a restaurant that her friend owned. What I mean is that she is the one who supported me in every conceivable manner. I cannot imagine ever thinking of my biological mother as my real mother. CIA is my real mother in ways that actually matter. Should I be wary of Eli's motives? I wonder what made her show up like that. I am curious and I hate myself for it. It makes me feel like I am betraying CIA in some way. I feel so guilty for even harboring these feelings. Update 1. Hello everyone, this is Daniela again. I am here with an update. It has been a week since my biological mom showed up asking for my surrogate mom, who is in all ways my actual mom, to give me back to her. She again showed up, but this time she told me not to call CIA. She claimed that she wished to talk to me face to face. I wasn't sure what to do, but I reluctantly let her in and didn't try to get in touch with CIA. I wasn't sure what the protocols were for such a weird and uncomfortable situation, so I was relieved when Eli took over the conversation. She told me that she had missed me. All her hostile behavior and superiority were gone at this moment. She sounded calm and collected and like she meant everything. This almost made me lean forward to hear everything she had to say to me. She claimed she understood that she was a horrible mother to me, that CIA was probably better than her, so why would I ever wish to return to her? But she begged me to reconsider at least reconnecting with her. She claimed that she just wants to be a mother to me like she never was in my childhood. She wishes for another chance. I wasn't sure how to react to that, so I remained silent. She took that as a no. Inside, Eli said that I don't have to decide right now. I don't even have to decide to move back with her and be her daughter. She just asked me to let her reconnect with her and go over the past and the relationship she messed up with me. She invited me to a dinner. She told me to keep it a secret from CIA because she understood that she might not like me hanging out with her, so if I had to keep it a secret, she would understand. She just wishes to spend some time with me. I told her that I would think about it, and the truth is that I am curious. Even though there is a part of me that hates me for being curious, but I can't stop thinking about the what-ifs. I know CIA treated me well, and I am not thinking about replacing her. No wealth in the world would ever make me leave her, but I want to see what happens with Eli. After all, she is actually my mother. I might never consider her as my real mother, but we do share DNA. Damn, I even look like her. So I texted Eli that I would come over. She immediately sent me the address and the date and time. I have even come up with an excuse to give to CIA. I will tell her that I'm going over to dinner with a bunch of friends. My best friend would even lie for me if I tell her, and CIA calls. I don't think CIA would be suspicious because I hang out like this with my friends all the time. Update 2. Hello everyone, this is Daniela again. Today I went to my biological mother's mansion, and to my surprise, it was supposed to be a family dinner. Even my grandpa Tobias, 72M, was there. I don't remember meeting him for about a decade. I was overcome with emotion when I saw him and he saw me. He embraced me immediately. I remember him carrying me on his shoulders when I visited him. There were a few uncles and aunts at the dinner as well. I didn't completely remember them, but I could remember flashes of them in my memories. However, they all talked to me very normally, which I found absurd. I had initially thought that they were embarrassed that I had been abandoned by the family. But then Eli started making up lies about how I was about to start university for business studies and how she was proud of me. That's when I realized that no one on the table except for me and Eli knew that I had been abandoned when I was 10. When an aunt from across from the table asked about my schooling, Eli interrupted from my side. Apparently, she had told her family that I had been at a boarding school abroad for the past 8 years. This all made me so uncomfortable and disgusted by her that I just wanted to leave and maybe cry. I think a cousin of mine, Brianna, 18F, realized that I was getting overwhelmed by everything, and so she asked me if I would like to come to the backyard. I nodded and followed her out to the pool to take a breath. The mansion was huge, even bigger than what I remember from my childhood. The garden itself was huge and led to a tennis court and a swimming pool side by side. It's hard to imagine why anyone would like to live in this huge house alone. Eli doesn't seem to have a partner, or at least she hasn't introduced them to me, so I am assuming that she lives here alone with some help. Brianna told me that I was so lucky to be living here. I didn't know what to say, so Eli asked what she meant by lucky. She said that Tobias was going to give the mansion to Eli because he wanted to give the mansion to someone with an heir, and he had already let Eli and me stay here after her marriage to my father. He wanted to give the mansion to someone with an heir so that the estate would continue to be inherited by future generations. That's when I realized that Eli was pretending that everything was fine because she wanted to pretend that she still had my rights. I wasn't her heir anymore, so she wouldn't be able to inherit the mansion after Tobias's death. When Eli was married to my dad, Grandpa gave them the estate to her so they could build a family there. As Grandpa's health was deteriorating, he wanted to finalize his will, and so in the past weeks, he had called a family meeting. He asked Eli where I was, as no one had heard about me for 8 years. Eli lied and said that I was out of the country for studies. Grandpa announced that he was glad to leave the estate with Eli, since she was a single parent, and said they'd be coming over for a family dinner to meet me. This realization made me feel so used and angry. It was clear that once Eli got the estate, she had no intentions of wishing to reconnect with me. She just wants to use me to get the mansion, and I plan to not let that happen. Update 3. Hey guys, this is Daniela again. I did something about my biological mother's greed today. Let me catch you up about what happened since I returned until today. Last week, when I came back home, CIA could tell that something was wrong. I tried to hide everything, but she's so warm and loving, as if she was afraid that I would run away or something, and I burst out crying and telling her everything I had found out that evening. I was shocked to find out that she wasn't mad at me. She revealed that she would have let me go to dinner with Eli if I had only asked her. I told her everything, from my realization to my regret of ever going to the dinner with Eli. If I hadn't shown up, Tobias would have been suspicious and asked about me, and maybe he wouldn't have given the estate to Eli, and I wouldn't have felt the way I did that day, used and then discarded. I begged CIA to tell me if she knew where to find Tobias. I told her about my wish to set the record straight and tell my grandfather about Eli's truth. She was reluctant in the beginning, but I was adamant, and she agreed. She told me that she had once gone to his estate to meet Tobias at his request. She kind of remembered where it was. However, it had been 18 years, so she wasn't really sure. I was eager to take the chance, and we decided to go next weekend. Today, CIA drove me to where she had gone to meet Tobias once. She parked in front of the car. She was sure that this was where he lived. I also saw the last name displayed on the gate and knew that I was in the right place. She stayed in the car and told me that she would wait for me while I went in. Tobias was shocked to find me there. He was looking at the backyard in his wheelchair and didn't know of my arrival. He smiled at me kindly and said that I had just met him on a bad day. That's it. I think he was trying to reassure me that he was all right. He doted on me a bit, asking me if I would like something to drink, and then he forced his guard to get me my favorite candy when I was a kid. Coincidentally, it was still my favorite candy. I think he was just glad that someone had come to ask after him. I don't think many of his family do that for him often. I took a deep breath before I told him that I was there for a reason. I revealed that Eli wasn't my guardian. He was confused, and I told him that she had signed my rights to my surrogate mother, CIA, 8 years ago and abandoned me. He was shocked to find it out and insisted that she hadn't done any such thing. She had sent me abroad. I told him that I was here with CIA, who was waiting for me just outside the house. He was quiet for a long time, and I didn't know what else to do, so I stood up and bid him goodbye. As I was walking towards the door, he asked if I would ever come over again. I asked him if he would like that, and he said that he would love to see me come over. We parted with smiles on our faces and a promise to meet again the next weekend. He even promised that he would be a better host that day and walk me around the house and everything. Now that I am home, I am glad that I went over even if nothing comes of it. I am glad that I am in touch with someone from my blood family. I would love to reconnect with my grandfather, and I can't wait for him to give me a tour of his house. Update 4. Hey everyone, it's Daniela here again. A few months have passed since I reconnected with my grandfather. 3 months ago, I went back to my grandpa's and he gave me a house tour and we had a great time. Ever since, I started going to his house every weekend. I turned 18 at this time, and my grandpa gave me a car after asking CIA if he could. I was delighted and promised him that I would drive it to him every weekend, and I did. I drove the car he gave me to his house to spend time with him. However, in these 3 months, I saw his health deteriorate weekly. Within the first month of going over, he became wheelchair-bound permanently. In the last few weeks, he was bedridden and could only talk and move his hands. The last time I saw him was a week ago, and he was in a terrible condition. He could barely keep his eyes open. I remember feeling hopeless as I had started to care about him a lot. He was my only blood family who actually cared about me. I spent that day reading him my favorite book, hoping that he could hear me or at least feel that I was there. I went back promising him that I would return the next day, even though it was a Monday. However, that night he had to be taken to the hospital, and I wasn't allowed to meet him. He died 2 days later, and his son, my uncle, was there with him. Today was his funeral and I had come, too. I was a mess and crying nonstop over CIA's shoulder. Tobias had really touched my soul in the last 3 months. I just wish I had known him this deeply for longer. I just couldn't stop thinking about the time I didn't have with him because of Eli. I hated seeing her fake her tears at the podium. Maybe she wasn't faking it, but I still felt bitter in regards to her. When we went back home, his lawyer was to read the will. I only went back because I wanted to be in his house for one last time. I didn't think I would be allowed in this house after today, so I tagged along. However, the contents of the will were really astonishing, and I'm glad I stuck around. The lawyer announced that I had inherited Eli's mansion. Eli had been shocked and asked what the lawyer meant. The lawyer told her to be patient. He would get to her. Tobias tortured Eli by not mentioning her until the very last. Tobias left all of his kids and their kids with something, and by the end, everyone was crying, and now it was Eli's turn. The lawyer pulled out another little envelope for Eli and started reciting it. It was a letter written by Tobias to Eli scolding her for her greed. The lawyer announced how Eli had abandoned me because she didn't want to take care of me. And when Tobias had put a condition of having an heir in order to inherit the mansion, Eli had pretended that she still had my rights. Eli got very angry and turned to physically assault me because she had realized that I had told him the truth. However, the guard of Grandpa's house was nearby and immediately threw her off me even before she could get to me. Eli screamed at me for ruining her life plans. I stayed quiet as the rest of the family gave her dirty looks. The guard let Eli out while she was screaming. While she was being let out, the lawyer told her that she needed to clear out the house within this month itself for me to move in. The whole family apologized to me for not knowing that Eli had done this to me, but I couldn't take this any longer and snuck out of the house with CIA. I feel so happy that Tobias hadn't ignored what I had said to him. He had taken me seriously, and he had done something about it. Update 5. Hello everyone, it's Daniela. I think this will be my last update. It has been 5 months since Tobias's will was read. He had given me his biggest mansion where my biological mother had been living, while Eli got nothing. Eli hadn't left the house by the end of the month, and the lawyer had to call the cops on her and forced her to leave. I don't know where she went, and I didn't try to find out either. For all I care, she could be homeless, and I wouldn't care a bit. I have grown a bit closer to a few of my cousins over time. We have been following each other and texting on social media and met a couple of times. I think my uncles and aunts just feel guilty that I was abandoned and put their kids to reconnect with me. I think I feel grateful that they are showing that they care about me. I have also moved into the mansion with CIA. When I am with her in the huge house, it doesn't seem so frightening. We have changed most of the furnishings with the money which was also inherited after my grandfather's death. I miss him dearly. I wish I could have thanked him for everything he did for me. Anyway, I have started college for culinary arts, and it's near my new mansion, which is great because CIA isn't left alone in that huge house like I was when I was a kid. Eli came over once to beg me to let her stay in her house. I reminded her that this wasn't her house. It was my house, and I lived here with my real mother. She again tried to manipulate me by talking about reconnecting, but I had had enough of her lies and kicked her out of the house and warned her to never show her face to me. I think that's it. CIA and I have been living happily in the mansion, and life is going great. I am currently working towards getting an internship at my dream restaurant. Thank you for reading when I felt like venting. Thank you for the advice you guys gave me at every step. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My wife stole $5,000 from my son's college fund and maxed out credit cards in his name. When I confronted her, she left us. 6 months later, I got full custody and the biggest promotion of my life. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but I need advice. I'm Nicholas, 38M, and I've been married to Margaret, 36F, for 10 years. We have 2 kids. My son Alex, 16M, from a previous relationship, and our daughter Emma, 8F. Margaret and I met when Alex was just 6. I was a single dad struggling to balance work and parenting. Margaret swept into our lives like a breath of fresh air. She was fun, energetic, and Alex adored her from the start. We got married after dating for 2 years, and Emma came along a couple of years later. I thought we had a great life. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but doesn't every family? Margaret has always been a bit of a free spirit when it comes to money. She loves spontaneous purchases and surprise gifts for the kids. I used to find it endearing, even if it sometimes meant we had to tighten our belts at the end of the month. Alex has always been different from Margaret in that regard. He's incredibly responsible with money, a trait he inherited from my late mother. Mom was a single parent too, and she taught me the value of every dollar. I've tried to pass those lessons on to Alex, and he's taken them to heart. Last year, Alex got his first job at the local grocery store. He was so excited to start saving for college. Margaret and I promised we'd match whatever he saved. It was our way of encouraging his hard work and helping secure his future. Alex threw himself into the job, picking up extra shifts whenever he could. I was so proud of his dedication. Everything seemed fine until last week. I was going over our monthly budget when I noticed some discrepancies in Alex's college fund. The balance was much lower than it should have been. At first, I thought it must be a mistake. I spent hours going over the numbers, trying to figure out where we'd gone wrong. That's when I found it. A series of withdrawals over the past 6 months totaling almost $5,000. My heart sank as I realized the withdrawals had been made by Margaret. I confronted her that night after the kids went to bed. I still remember the look on her face when I showed her the bank statements. A mix of guilt, fear, and defiance. She broke down crying, admitting she had been using the money to pay off credit card debt she'd been hiding from me. I was stunned. Margaret and I have always been open about money, or so I thought. We've had joint accounts since we got married. The idea that she'd been hiding debt from me for months, maybe years, made me question everything. Margaret begged me not to tell Alex. She said it would destroy their relationship. They've always been close. Margaret's been more of a mom to Alex than his biological mother, who left when he was a baby. The thought of ruining that bond made me sick to my stomach. But how could I keep this from Alex? He's worked so hard, sacrificed so much. He deserves to know the truth. And what about Emma? How can we teach her about honesty and responsibility when her own mother is stealing and lying? Margaret promised she'd pay it all back, but I don't see how that's possible. We're not exactly rolling in money. I work as a manager at a local factory, and Margaret's part-time job at a boutique doesn't bring in much. We've always been comfortable but not wealthy. I spent the next few days in a daze trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't focus at work. I kept replaying our entire relationship in my head, wondering if there were signs I missed. Was Margaret always like this, and I just didn't see it? Or did something change? When I told Margaret I was considering telling Alex the truth, she flipped out. She accused me of trying to turn him against her. She said that, as his stepmother, she had just as much right to the money as he did. I was shocked. This isn't the woman I married. The Margaret I knew would never think she had a right to Alex's hard-earned money. Now Margaret's giving me the silent treatment. She says I'm overreacting and that families help each other out. But this doesn't feel like helping. It feels like a betrayal. I keep thinking about how excited Alex was when he reached his savings goal last month. He talked about maybe being able to afford a better laptop for school or having extra money for books. The thought of crushing his dreams is killing me. I'm also worried about Emma. She's at an age where she's starting to understand money, and she looks up to her big brother. How do I explain this situation to her without damaging her relationship with her mother? I've considered suggesting counseling, both for our marriage and for Margaret's spending issues, but Margaret refuses, saying it's unnecessary and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. She keeps insisting that she'll pay it back eventually but won't give me any concrete plan on how. I'm torn between my love for my wife and my duty to protect my kids. I never imagined I'd be in a position where I'd have to choose. The stress is affecting my work and my health. I've barely slept in days. I can't help but think about my own childhood. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. She taught me the value of hard work and honesty. What would she think of this situation? I feel like I'm letting her down by even considering keeping this from Alex. But then I think about our family. Despite our problems, we've always been close. We have game nights every Friday, and Sunday dinners are sacred in our house. The thought of blowing up our family over this is terrifying. I'm not sure what my next move should be. Do I tell Alex the truth and risk blowing up our family? Do I give Margaret a chance to make things right? Or do I need to start considering more drastic measures to protect my kids and our finances? I've always prided myself on being a good father and husband. I thought I was doing everything right, providing for my family, teaching my kids good values. Now I feel like I failed them all. Any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I'm drowning here, and I don't know which way is up anymore. Date 1. It's been a week since my last post, and I wish I could say things have gotten better, but they've only gotten worse. After days of agonizing over what to do, I decided to tell Alex the truth about what happened to his college fund. I couldn't bear the thought of continuing to lie to him, especially after all the hard work he's put in. I sat Alex down in his room last Saturday. I can still see his face as I explained the situation. The confusion, the disbelief, and then the anger. At first, he thought I was joking. Then he got quiet, eerily quiet. He asked why Margaret would do this to him, and honestly, I didn't have a good answer. The hardest part was watching the light go out of his eyes. Alex has always been an optimistic kid, always looking forward to the future. But in that moment, I saw something change in him. He asked if this meant he couldn't go to college, and my heart broke all over again. Margaret found out that I told Alex later that day. She completely lost it. She screamed at me for betraying her and ruining her relationship with Alex. She accused me of always loving Alex more than her and Emma, of never fully accepting her as Alex's mother. It was like years of resentment came pouring out. Then she did something I never expected. She packed a bag and left. She said she needed space to think, and that she couldn't be around people who didn't trust her. I was stunned. In all our years together, even during our worst fights, she's never walked out like this. Alex has been quiet and withdrawn since finding out. He stopped talking about college altogether, which kills me. He used to chat non-stop about the programs he was interested in, the clubs he wanted to join. Now he barely speaks at all. I've tried to reassure him that we'll figure something out, but I can see the disappointment in his eyes. Emma is confused and keeps asking where her mom is. She's only 8, and this is the first time Margaret's ever been away for more than a day. I've tried to explain, in age-appropriate terms, that Mommy and Daddy are having a disagreement, but it's hard to shield her from the tension in the house. To make matters worse, I discovered that Margaret's spending issues go far beyond what I initially thought. While she was gone, I started going through our financial documents, trying to get a handle on our situation. That's when I found a stack of unopened bills hidden in her dresser. It turns out we're over $20,000 in credit card debt that I knew nothing about. I'm overwhelmed, trying to manage everything on my own. Between work, taking care of the kids, and trying to sort out this financial mess, I'm running on fumes. Alex has offered to pick up more hours at his job to help out, but I don't want him to sacrifice his studies. He's already lost so much because of this situation. Margaret finally came back after 3 days, acting like nothing had happened. When I tried to talk to her about the bills I found, she got defensive and accused me of snooping. She still refuses to consider counseling or admit that she has a problem. She keeps insisting that lots of families have debt, that I'm overreacting. I'm starting to realize that this isn't just about the money. Margaret's behavior is erratic, and she seems to have no remorse for her actions. I'm worried about her mental health, but she shuts down any time I try to bring it up. It's like I'm living with a stranger. Alex asked me if he could stay with his biological mom for a while. As much as it hurts, I understand he needs some space from the situation. His mom wasn't around much when he was younger, but they've been trying to rebuild their relationship over the past few years. I just hope this doesn't permanently damage our relationship. Alex and I have always been close, and the thought of losing that connection terrifies me. I've reached out to a financial advisor to try and get a handle on our situation. The debt is even worse than I thought, and I'm not sure how we're going to dig ourselves out of this hole. The advisor suggested we might need to consider bankruptcy, which feels like admitting defeat. Through all of this, I keep coming back to one question. Can I ever trust Margaret again? Even if we somehow manage to repay Alex and get our finances in order, I'm not sure I can move past this betrayal. Every time I look at her, I see the hurt in Alex's eyes when I told him the truth. I'm trying to stay strong for the kids, but inside I'm falling apart. I never thought I'd be considering divorce, but I'm starting to think it might be the only way to protect myself and my children. The thought of breaking up our family kills me, but I don't know how we come back from this. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and I've had to make some of the hardest decisions of my life. After much consideration and several heated arguments, I've decided to separate from Margaret. The final straw came when I discovered Margaret had opened a credit card in Alex's name. She claimed she was trying to help build his credit, but the $3,000 balance told a different story. I realized then that I couldn't trust her with our finances or our children's future. I've moved out of our house and into a small apartment nearby. It's not much, but it's all I can afford right now. Alex has decided to stay with me full-time, while Emma splits her time between us. It's been a tough adjustment, especially for Emma, who doesn't fully understand what's happening. Margaret has been telling anyone who will listen that I'm overreacting and tearing our family apart over a simple mistake. Her family has been calling and texting nonstop, telling me I'm being cruel and unforgiving. They say I'm throwing away 10 years of marriage over money. It's been emotionally draining, trying to explain the situation over and over again. On a positive note, Alex and I have grown closer through this ordeal. He's been incredibly mature about the whole situation. We've had some deep conversations about trust, responsibility, and the importance of financial literacy. I'm trying to use this as a teaching moment, as painful as it is. I've been working with a lawyer to protect our assets and ensure Margaret can't access any more of our accounts. We're also looking into the legality of the credit card she opened in Alex's name. The lawyer thinks we might have a case for identity theft, but pursuing it would mean potentially sending Margaret to jail. I'm not sure I'm ready to take that step. Despite everything, financially we're struggling. I'm working overtime to try and make ends meet, and we've had to make some significant cutbacks. No more cable TV, no more eating out, and I had to sell my car and start taking the bus to work. Alex insisted on contributing some of his paycheck to help with bills, which both touches and saddens me. He shouldn't have to be dealing with this at his age. Emma is having a hard time adjusting to the new living situation. She's been acting out at school and having nightmares. She doesn't understand why she can't live with both her parents all the time. I found a child therapist for her, hoping it will help her process everything that's happening. Margaret has made half-hearted attempts at reconciliation, promising to get help for her spending issues, but her actions don't match her words. She still refuses to take full responsibility for what she's done, always finding ways to shift blame or minimize the impact of her actions. Last week, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, begging me to come home. When I refused, she accused me of never really loving her, of always putting Alex first. It was painful to see how quickly her mood could shift from remorseful to angry. I'm trying to take things one day at a time, but it's hard. There are moments when I miss the life we had, the family we were. I miss our Sunday dinners and our impromptu dance parties in the living room. I miss the way Margaret used to look at me before all of this happened. But then I remind myself of the betrayal, the lies, and I know I'm making the right choice for myself and my kids. Update 3. 6 months have passed since my last update, and a lot has changed. The divorce is finalized, and I have full custody of both Alex and Emma. It was a messy process, but ultimately Margaret's financial irresponsibility worked in my favor in court. Alex is doing better. He's thrown himself into his studies and work, determined to rebuild his college fund. I'm incredibly proud of his resilience. We've had many late-night talks about trust, relationships, and moving forward. These conversations have brought us closer than ever. Emma is slowly adjusting to our new normal. The therapy has been helping, and she's starting to understand why the separation was necessary. She still has moments of sadness, especially around holidays, but overall she's coping well. Financially, we're still struggling, but things are looking up. I got a promotion at work which has eased some of the financial strain. We're slowly but surely paying off the debts Margaret left us with. Margaret has been in and out of our lives. She'll disappear for weeks, then show up with grand promises of change. Each time, she inevitably disappoints the kids. It's heartbreaking to watch, but I'm learning to set firm boundaries for all our sakes. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown through this experience. It's been painful, but I've learned valuable lessons about trust, financial responsibility, and the importance of open communication in relationships. I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. The kids and I have started new traditions, like Sunday game nights and monthly financial check-ins where we discuss our budget and savings goals as a family. It's not always easy, but we're rebuilding our lives one day at a time. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I am new to Reddit, so I hope I'm doing this right. I'm a 35-year-old man, and I was married to my wife, who was also 35, for 8 years. 5 years ago, I left her. We are child-free by choice, her choice. I had always said we had a good relationship in marriage, but looking back, I see that it was only good for her. Here is my story. I've always been the nerdy type. Smart, good grades, but never popular. I come from a very well-off family, due to my grandparents' inheritance and some smart investments my parents made. I did not have to go to college or work and could still have a comfortable life, but I loved what I did. I met my wife during my first year in college. She was in my class and was looking for a tutor. She was a scholarship kid. We spent more and more time together, but never on the weekends. I wasn't the outgoing type, and she would still go out on the weekends. After a while, we started going on dates, and after I graduated, we got married. Looking back, she started making decisions for us as soon as we got together. My wife worked the first half of our marriage, but when her company downsized, she got laid off. She became a stay-at-home wife who was not at home that much. She had friends. She took trips with them, had a lot of lunches and dinners with her friends, and basically spent my money on her well-off lifestyle. While I remember our love life being passionate in the beginning, it's just that, a memory. When I was 29, I was involved in a car crash. They say a drunk driver totaled my car, but I still have no memory of that day. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. After waking up, I had to learn to do a lot of things again. After 4 months, I went back to work. When I came back home, my wife put me in the spare room. She said it had been like that for a while because I was snoring. I kept my mouth shut, but I knew that this was new. The accident somehow gave me clarity of mind. I could see that the marriage had been over for a while, but I still wanted to see if I could save it. Everything I tried failed. What sealed the deal for me was my 30th birthday. I came home and she was not there. She was having a spa day with her friend. I ordered takeout, watched a movie, and made a decision. I wanted out. The next morning, I had my lawyer start drafting divorce papers. I stopped engaging with her unless absolutely necessary. Slowly, I started selling anything that had any emotional value to me. I left all her stuff for her. I bought a new car and left it at a parking garage not too far from our home. 1 month later, all I had left were my clothes, a couple of laptops, a projector, and a portable screen. Everything I needed to work from the road. I did not quit my job. I arranged for it to be completely remote. 2 months after my birthday, I stayed while my wife was at yet another lunch with her girls. I took the new car, packed everything I needed in it, left the divorce papers and a letter on my bed in the spare room, and closed the door to my house for the last time. Wondering how long it would take for her to notice, I decided to drive cross-country and visit every place I wanted to go but couldn't because my wife didn't want to. We had a prenup, so she had no rights to ask for anything. In the letter, I explained that I was leaving. I told her I would leave her the house and the car and would pay her some money every month for exactly 1 year. After that, she was on her own. In my own stupidity, I forgot to mention why I was leaving. This would work out in my favor. 10 days after I left, I got a text from my wife asking me where I was and if this was a joke. She called me, but I didn't pick up. I never pick up the phone while driving. I had an automated text sent that said, "I'm driving and will call back later." She sent me text after text after text that night. I stopped at a motel and decided to read the texts before calling her back first. She was asking if this was a joke, then asking when I would come back, then begging me to come back, not knowing why I left, and then she said something. She was sorry and didn't mean anything, and she would cut him off. She was having an affair, something I never suspected. I called her cell phone, and she was at her parents'. I learned this tactic from TV. She started yelling at me, and I hung up. I waited 1 minute and called back. She started yelling again, and I hung up again. I waited 2 minutes and called back again. This time, she wasn't yelling, and I started talking. I told her that she was going to let me talk first, and after I said what I needed to say, then she could ask questions. I told her why I left. We were married but living like roommates, not even roommates because they at least acknowledge each other. I didn't remember the last time we had a conversation, the last time we did something together, or the last time we had sex, but I knew it was before the accident. I told her that for a month before leaving, I stopped talking and sold everything I had in the house, and she didn't even notice. It took her 10 days after I left before she noticed I was gone. If she had called me on the day I left, I would have turned around immediately. I ended with, "Thank you for admitting to the affair. I really didn't know about that." She tried to apologize, and when she asked me to come back, I asked her why. If she could explain to me why I would consider it, what was in it for me, what would change. She couldn't answer, so I said goodbye and told her my lawyer knows how to contact me. Then I blocked her. The next day, I bought a new phone with a new number and left the old one in the motel. 2 weeks later, I got an email from my lawyer that the divorce papers were signed. I was free. I kept my word. My lawyer already had all documents signed by me that would transfer ownership of the house and the cars to her. The bank automatically deposits a fixed amount to our shared account every month for a year. Where we are now, for the past 5 years, I've been driving across the country working remotely. I finally had a reason to start social media. I posted online where I've been and where I'm going. I stay in a place for a couple of weeks and then drive to the next. My ex-wife started following me on Instagram a year after I left. Out of curiosity, I looked at her public posts. I'm not planning on following her back. She posted pictures with her boyfriend soon after I left. To her credit, she did not badmouth me, at least not on Instagram. 2 months after I left, they apparently broke up. That was the last time I really had an update on her. I also have a sex life now. Once I put myself out there, it turned out to be easier to have casual sex. No committed relationships now. After years, I'm finally going back to my hometown. There is a reunion I want to attend. I'm staying for a month, maybe 2, and then I'm going to Canada. I have no plans of looking up my ex, but I will also not actively avoid her if I see her. I'll see her. If I don't, I don't. Conclusion. Leaving my wife was the hardest and most liberating decision I ever made. It took her over a week to notice I was gone, which confirmed that our marriage had been over for a long time. Now I'm living my life on my terms, exploring new places, and finally feeling free. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm excited to find out. Update 1. In an unbelievable turn of events that feels like it's straight out of a movie, my journey took yet another dramatic twist, proving once again that life is nothing if not unpredictable. After settling into my nomadic lifestyle and embracing the freedom of the open road, I arrived back in my hometown for the reunion, feeling a mix of excitement and nostalgia. The reunion was enjoyable, catching up with old friends and revisiting familiar places. However, the real shock came just a few days after the event. While grabbing coffee at a local cafe, I unexpectedly ran into none other than my ex-wife. The encounter was as surprising to her as it was to me. We exchanged awkward greetings, and she seemed genuinely flustered to see me. What she said next, however, floored me. She confessed that she had been following my travels, not just through social media, but she had also been physically following me for the past year. Her explanation was that after our divorce, she went through a period of deep introspection and realized how much she had lost. Not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. She described how she tried to find fulfillment in other relationships but ultimately felt empty and unfulfilled. According to her, following me became a way to feel close to me, to understand where she went wrong, reconnect, or startle me by popping up unexpectedly. She just got caught up in this wild idea that by tracing my steps and seeing the places I loved, she might somehow find herself again or at least understand what she lost. Her confession took me by surprise, and honestly, it was a lot to take in over a casual coffee. She looked sincere, almost vulnerable, as she explained her reasoning. Her voice shaky, her eyes not quite meeting mine. She told me how after our split, she plunged into a deep introspective journey, trying to patch up her sense of self that she realized had been quite fragmented even before we met. She admitted that when she saw posts about the places I visited and the experiences I was having, she felt a mixture of regret and a strange sense of pride that someone she once loved was out there in the world really living life to the fullest. She said it sparked something in her, a desire to explore, to step out of her comfort zone, which she had never really done in our time together. So I guess I got a bit carried away, she admitted with a half-hearted chuckle. I started by just visiting a few of the places you posted about, thinking it would just be a one-off thing. But then one place led to another, and soon I was taking roads I'd never have dared to before. She told me how traveling alone had opened her eyes to so much about herself, her fears, her dreams, and how much she had relied on the identity of being someone's wife to feel valued. It's not like I was trying to live your life or anything creepy like that, she quickly added, noticing my uneasy glance. It was more about me trying to find out who I am when I'm not just someone's other half and following your journey. It just gave me a framework, a starting point. I listened, sipping my coffee, trying to wrap my head around all this. It was surreal to hear that someone had been shadowing my life so closely, even if from a distance. But seeing her there, hearing her talk about her own growth, her mistakes, and her realizations, it made me see her in a new light. Not just as my ex-wife who hurt me, but as a person, flawed and searching, just like anyone else. I don't expect anything from you, not forgiveness, not a redo, she said earnestly. I just thought if fate ever brought us face to face, I owed you an explanation for everything. The good, the bad, and the weird turns my life took. We ended up talking for over an hour. It wasn't like old times, but it wasn't uncomfortable either. It was just two people with a shared history catching up on the journeys that life had taken them on since parting ways. She seemed lighter somehow, like confessing this had lifted a weight off her shoulders. As for me, I felt a strange sense of closure. It was unexpected but welcome. After our conversation, we said our goodbyes. This time it felt final, but in a good way. She walked one way, and I walked the other, both of us heading into our separate futures with a better understanding of our past. Now, as I prepare for the next leg of my journey, Canada, here I come, I do so with a clearer mind. Who knows what adventures await, but I'm ready for them. More so now than ever. And as for my ex following my path, well, I guess in a way it led her to find her own road, and that's not such a bad outcome after all. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Lies of 33 years unfolded. My world imploded. I feel completely devastated and lost. I'm not new to Reddit. This is a throwaway account, for obvious reasons. I usually use Reddit to talk about grilling, smoking, college football, and electric guitars and amps. I'm a 51-year-old man with a 51-year-old wife, who I've been married to for 33 years. We have 3 adult children. Daughters, 29 and 26, and a son, 22. My wife and I have had a very normal, loving marriage for 33 years. Actually, 33 years as of next month. Sure, we've had ups and downs over the years, like any long-term relationship, but we don't go to bed mad, and we're each other's best friends. I'm a hopeless romantic. She's less mushy about romance, but loves when I make romantic gestures, and I do all the time. Love letters, texts, emails, surprise date nights to do something fun. Our last one recently was a couple's cooking class, and we had a blast. Sex every week, usually Saturday and Sunday. Happy home. No complaints at all from either of us. Quick background on me. I had a single mom and do not know my biological father. My mother kept every detail of him a secret and took that secret to the grave with her. My wife and our children have always wondered about that. This year, for my birthday, one of my children bought me a DNA test from Ancestry. They said we could maybe discover something about my biological father. Before I took it, all the kids decided they wanted to take one too, since their bloodline also comes from my unknown father. When we got our test results, they were bizarre, to say the least. I'm sure some of you have guessed, but my oldest 2 children are not mine. We each got our results separately, but the kids had been talking among themselves before they shared with us, so they asked if we could do a family dinner at our house. They all came over. Dinner was fine, but they wanted to talk to us about something. Then the bombshell. They said they compared results and that the oldest 2 children are not my kids. The youngest is. They asked if we had anything to tell them. I said, of course not. There has to be a mistake. I looked over at my wife and knew in an instant there was no mistake. She had a look of terror on her face like I've never seen before. At once, this calm, level-headed, wonderful woman I've been married to for 33 years screamed out some kind of gibberish, then ran for the bedroom and locked the door. We all tried to get her to come out, but to no avail. We're all freaking out at this point. She immediately texted our phones and asked that we all leave her alone for a couple of hours to compose herself and then reconvene at the table, and she'll join us. We did as she requested, but I'll tell you what, that 2 hours felt like a lifetime and my brain was on overload as to what the hell was going on. I still figured this had to be some kind of mistake. Of course, the girls were mine. Whose else would they be? My wife and I weren't partiers or swingers. We're Disney Channel people, not Cinemax. She comes out at about the 2-hour mark and asks the kids if they could please go and that she needed to talk to me alone, and that she'd be sure to let them know what's going on as soon as she can. They protested vehemently, but respected her request and left, saying they'll be back if they don't hear something soon. I'm sitting there just blown away at this point, like this isn't real, like I'm watching a movie, except that I'm in the movie. She then tells me something that has caused permanent change in me. I hope not permanent, but it feels permanent. She looks me straight in the eyes and says, "My name. I had an affair many years ago. It was with one of our neighbors and friends from the same social circle at the time. It went on for about 4 years until I wised up and realized what a wonderful husband I had, and that I needed to grow up and stop acting stupid." Then she put her hands on my cheeks to pull me in and, still looking in my eyes, said, "You are my everything. I am your girl for life. I love you with all my heart. I did a very stupid and selfish thing many years ago. You did nothing wrong. You've been the best husband any woman could ever ask for. And I hope we try to put this in perspective and recognize what a wonderful life we've had together, and that we don't want this stupid, hurtful mistake to ruin it." She then said she'd do whatever I wanted, answer any question, leave if I asked, but kept assuring me that I'm her everything and that once she realized how stupid she was being, she's never even once thought about cheating on me for a second since it ended. The man she cheated with is no longer alive. They didn't love each other but had convinced themselves that this sexual outlet from their marriages made them better spouses. What devastates me is that my daughters are not my biological children. They are also devastated. They want to know details about this man, since he's their real father, and that also kills me. They both assure me that I'm their father and they love me with all their hearts, but we all know I'm not their father. The other man was. It's also worth noting that, until this DNA test, my wife also never knew for sure. What devastates me is that the woman I held in the highest regard, as far as love, respect, esteem, etc., carried on an affair for years. The woman that has loved me and honored me for decades also betrayed me. What devastates me is the question: was my whole adult life to this point a lie? Was my entire marriage a lie? Is nothing real in this world? She has been an amazing wife and partner. I've had 0 complaints my entire marriage, even when she was cheating. What devastates me is that this man died a few years ago of cancer, and that I can't go talk to him man to man and possibly punch his lights out. What devastates me is that I was her first and only. I had only one previous teenage, awkward quickie in the backseat of a car with a former girlfriend before my wife, but that was it for me. Now I find out she was having regular sex with this man for years. How can I get over that? This all happened pretty recently. Next month is our 33rd anniversary, and I just don't know what to do. I asked her to leave, and she has been staying with her sister and her husband. She is absolutely devastated. So am I. Everyone I've talked with about this says that I've had an amazing life with my wife. She's a great wife and mother. She made a horrible mistake when she was very young, and to not let this ruin us. I get that over and over, and logically I know that's all true, but my heart right now is not being logical. I was really happy with my life. I loved my wife and children with all my heart. Can I ever get back to that state? Or has this revelation permanently altered the course of my life? I'm absolutely lost now and honestly wish I was dead. I'm very seriously considering taking care of that. If I can't forgive her and forget this, then I'm gonna kill myself. I have no interest in living a different life than what we've had. I'm not that fond of the world anyway, except for my family. Update 1. Thank you all for the support. There's so much to read and absorb. I'm still numb and in shock. I'm gonna take some time for that to wear off before I consider my future. I've talked to my sister-in-law, and she said my wife is a blubbering mess, telling her she always knew this was gonna come back to haunt her, and that she had tried so hard over the years to make up for what she had done. They're trying to get her to go to a shrink, the same as my friends and family are trying to do for me. I haven't decided to stay in this world or not. I'm still thinking on it. I have no fear of dying. I've had a great life to this point. I have 0 interest in any other life. A new life, a changed life, whatever. That doesn't appeal to me. I have to figure out if there is a path back to the life I had built with my wife and family. If there is, I'll stay. If not, I won't. Thank you again to everyone who took their own personal time to respond. I have read and thought about each and every response and will continue to do so. It's nice to think that, in a world so cruel, a bunch of strangers wouldn't try to help someone they've never met. I'll post another update in the future. Thank you all again. Update 2. I'm surviving. I asked my wife to come back about 10 days ago. Our 33rd wedding anniversary is tomorrow. We're all like zombies these days. I don't know how to process this. I'm not seeing a therapist or anyone right now. I've confided in a few people but don't really have a really close confidant. My wife has served that role for the last 33 years, obviously. I didn't kill myself and have decided not to, no matter what. I had that all worked out. I have even investigated all the legalities and insurance loopholes of what suicide means as far as life insurance, pension, death benefits, etc. It would all be covered. My wife and children would still get the benefits they'd get if I died of natural causes. The relationship is different with my daughters and me. We all proclaim our love and that I'm still their dad constantly. But it seems like we're trying to convince ourselves of that as much as anyone else. It's still different now, and I don't know if it can ever be the same. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I can never be the same. Of all the damn things to trip up my wife's secret, a silly ancestry DNA test. She was going to take this secret to the grave, according to her and the only other human being that knew, her sister. This has haunted her for decades. She knew what she was risking losing, and once it was over, that the fog had cleared, she knew how stupid, selfish, and immature she had been. She's the baby of her family. She was daddy's girl and very spoiled when we first got together. The other man's family has been informed. We, daughters and I, felt that since they are in his bloodline that his family should know. Needless to say, there are some very shocked people on their side. Welcome to the club. My daughters have been introduced to some half-siblings they never knew they had. They're good girls and constantly shower me with "You're my dad forever." I love my papa and all that, and I do appreciate it, but it's not the same. It just isn't. They aren't my flesh and blood. They never were. These days, my wife is the one that is suicidal. She's crushed that this is caught up with her. She really hoped to take it to the grave. Was willing to accept and internalize the guilt and shame as her penance and punishment for what she did for years. She said things like, "You're too good for me. Why are you so good to me? I don't deserve you." She'd also say things like, "I'm a shitty person, and I don't know why I was blessed with a husband like you. I don't deserve you." I just figured that was out of a self-esteem issue because she was a wonderful person, an amazing wife and mother that absolutely did deserve a good husband that treated her well. One of my primary missions in life was to be the husband she deserved. My own career has been limited over the years because I decided young that my family always comes first. If a promotion meant more hours at the office, then I didn't want it. I turned down several much higher-paying jobs because they had 25 to 50% travel requirements. We were never rich or even well off, but we had enough to pay our bills and spend a lot of time together as a family. That is what is important to me. My family means more to me than anything. It's a huge cosmic kick in my nuts that this family I cherished more than anything was not 100% legit. My two daughters that were the apples of dad's eye aren't my children. Now that I reflect back on those things my wife said, I know it was her guilt that she had done such a horrible thing but still had a good family life, a husband and children that adored her and thought the world of her. Now those things she'd say make sense. She has offered to do anything I ask and is doing all kinds of research on what to expect and how to help heal the family. She is going to a therapist to help her deal with this enormous ton of guilt and shame that has now come to the surface and is crushing her. She can barely look our children in the eye. They held her in very high regard. We all did. I can see the pain, not just the pain of getting caught and how it affects her, but the pain of true remorse and knowing what she has done to us. We have started talking about the affair. It's tough because we both break down emotionally. Both of our hearts are broken. Anyway, we got married young, 19 years old. We had our first child at 21. We became husband/wife and mom/dad very young, and that was who we were. She was always a great mother and wife. She says she was still so young and very spoiled, selfish, had a sense of entitlement, and had some resentment that she was so off the market at 21 as a wife and mother, even though all her friends were still out there getting all kinds of attention from guys and sowing their wild oats. Something she felt she had cheated herself out of, but didn't regret marrying me that young because she loved me with all her heart and didn't want to lose me. She said neither one of them ever even once talked about leaving their families to be together. They were each other's escape from routine family life. She tells me that she knows her words don't mean much to me and that she's a liar that did a horrible thing, but that if I'm to really listen to anything, that I need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that her heart has only ever belonged to one person in her life and still does, and that's me. She said she has never regretted being my wife and mother to our kids, and that it has been the joy of her life. She says there is no way she can magically fix this, and if she could go back in time and talk to her younger self, she'd tell her, don't do this horrible thing. What you think is harmless could ruin your life. She keeps telling me it was stupid. It was 100% her fault. She was stupid, selfish, immature, and did a horrible thing to me and our family. She said I didn't deserve it, and if I can't be married to her anymore, that it would kill her, but she would understand and only want what is best for me. She said, whether we stay married or not, that she will love me until her last breath. She had some very meaningful talks with her sister when she was staying with them, and her sister told her that she was a huge spoiled brat back then, that she'd seen her grow into a wonderful woman over the years, but it was time to face the music, be 100% honest about everything, and throw herself on the mercy of the court. She has been doing that. One thing bugging me is that people that know, including my wife and children, are treating me like a man that just got a terminal cancer diagnosis. They're really sorry and don't know what to say, so they're just overly sympathetic to me. I understand. I wouldn't know what to say to someone in this position. Yesterday, my wife asked if I even wanted to acknowledge our anniversary. She said she'd like to do something nice for me if I would allow it, but she totally understands if I don't want to recognize it. I said, don't be silly. We're going to our favorite Mexican restaurant, like we have done for years. We still made it to 33 years. We just have new life challenges to figure out, which we will. That brought a short and quick smile to her face and then made her cry. Sob uncontrollably is more like it. She does that a lot these days. Her sister has told her to knock that off, which she's trying to do. So here's the deal. I've had time to digest this whole thing, and I've done nothing but think about it over and over, looked at it from every angle, studied all the little pieces, considered everything that happened and all possible outcomes. What she did all those years ago was a very stupid, selfish, cruel, heartless, bad thing. What she did breaks my heart like it's never been broken, but my heart will heal. Life is full of joy and pain. This is a time of pain, but there will be joy again. I try to be a strong person. I have had my time to lament this and examine it in every way. I know my course of action and will not waver on it. Tomorrow night, before dinner, I'm going to tell my wife that she's been a wonderful wife to me and mother to our children. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in life to share the joys and endure the hardships with, as she has told me. I will tell her that my heart has belonged only to her since the day I met her at our after-school part-time job in a local retail store when we were 17 years old. I've always loved her and still love her every day. I thank God that she is in my life and my wife, even now. Tomorrow night, I'm going to tell my wife that I forgive this foolish thing and that, aside from that, she's still been the finest wife and mother to children that a man could ever ask for in life. We will have a good cry and hug and comfort each other. Then we will go to dinner and maybe go see the new version of A Star is Born and have a wonderful anniversary. I will love, honor, and cherish my wife as I have for 33 years, and she has for me. I will love all my children as I always have since the days they were born. I will be strong and the leader of my family for any of them that need to cry about this, talk about this, or whatever, but I will not speak of it again. I know what happened. I can't change it. We will survive it together. I refuse to let this tear us all apart. As odd as it is to say at 51 years old, I think we may have just grown up. This has been a gut-wrenching experience, and I'm sorry for everyone that goes through something similar. It hurts. I'm the last person to give advice on it, but I'd encourage any of you not to let it destroy you, as I considered doing in the beginning. Be strong and good luck. Update 3. I think I've gone crazy and have no one to talk to. I have a long backstory. You can check my history. We're trying to get past this. This last Saturday, I drove past a Chevy dealership for no reason at all. I stopped. An hour later, I had traded my old Camry for a 2018 Camaro ZL1. I always wanted a badass car. Never owned one. My wife was happy for me. I love this car. That's not the news, though. This morning, I was in a meeting at work. The VP of Financial Ops was being his usual self. He always gives my department an extra load of work. I've sat through 1,000 of these meetings. About 30 minutes in, I had an overwhelming urge to leave. I got up and walked out. I got in my car and left. I started driving west. I've been gone for a few hours and I'm a couple hundred miles out. I'm heading for California. I've always wanted to live there, but life didn't make that doable. I haven't left my wife. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I love this car and I'm going to California. I hate my job. I'm not going back there. I don't know what I'll do when I get to California. Maybe send for my wife, maybe not. I don't know what I'm doing right now, but one thing I'm aware of is that I feel awesome. I haven't felt this good in a long time. Is this some type of nervous breakdown euphoria? I don't feel like I'm going crazy. On the contrary, I feel inexplicably coherent and lucid right now. All I know is I'm going to San Diego. 2,275 miles to go. I finished lunch and I'm heading back out. Thanks for letting me get this out there. There is no one in my life I could discuss this with. I'm sorry if I've let anyone down. I try to be strong and will be okay. I just need to go. Help. Update 4. I haven't been on Reddit in quite a while. I apologize for not updating sooner, but there have been so many changes in my life in the last few months. In a way, I don't even remember who I was or what I felt like before this happened. It's like I do remember, but it seems so long ago. I'm a different person now, and I don't think I can ever go back to who I was. Who I used to be was shaped in large part around my marriage, which was the biggest part of my life. Now I don't know what to think of that. Anyway, of course I traveled back home. I had a blast in California. I met a lot of interesting people and talked to some very pretty women around my age. I was able to really let go of this crazy situation for a while and exist as a different person. I called my boss and was able to take leave. Now they know what is going on, which I hate, but at least them knowing has made them more willing to give me the time I need to deal with it. I still have the Camaro. It's sitting outside my office right now. I love that car, and I drive it too fast everywhere I go. I've realized I hate my career. I thought I loved it before, but I think I loved the life that it provided for my wife and our family. I really no longer care about that life very much. When you remove that, I started seeing a lot of other things differently. I don't want to work for other people anymore. I'm planning my exit strategy. I have a great retirement account. Even if I have to surrender half to my wife, if it comes to that, I'll still be fine. I want to do something else. I'm thinking of opening a bar/diner in a very hip part of town. I'm actually pretty good with cooking for large groups and love to do it. I do a lot of different types of burgers, tacos, fajitas, etc. Perfect bar food. That's just an idea. We'll see. As for my wife, I'm back home, but I don't act husbandly with her. I'm not mean to her and we are currently still married, but I just don't care. I've lost my ability to care about her like a husband cares for a wife, and I can't get it back. My existence there is pleasant enough. I do whatever I want when I want and check with no one. She tries to let me know her comings and goings, but I tell her that's not necessary. She's being very pleasant around me and is so ashamed of herself. I can tell. I think something she valued in our lives is how much respect I had for her. I did. I had more respect for my wife than any other human being I've ever had in my life. Now I feel no respect for her at all. None. It's like she erased the biggest and best thing that had happened in my life up to this point. My marriage. Of course, everyone gives me advice. Go to marriage counseling. It was so long ago. Don't ruin the best thing in your life because of a stupid mistake she made so long ago. She's been an amazing wife and mother. You have to give her credit for that, blah, blah, blah. Literally everyone in my life has an opinion on how I can heal and what I should do. To be honest, I don't know what the future holds, and right now I don't care. It's pleasant at the house. I've moved to the finished basement and come and go as I please. My wife doesn't bother me, pressure me, or give me any grief at all. I think she's just thankful that I'm still here. I think she thinks that as long as I'm still at home and haven't filed for divorce, that we may come through this. I have no answer to that, and that doesn't bother me at all. When the answer or the path forward becomes clear to me, then I'll act. But two things I know for sure. I'm not going to rush myself. I'm going to live for me and do whatever I want to do. No one will influence whatever I do in the future but me. Of course, I love my daughters, and the relationship with all the kids is still solid. None of this was any of their fault. I just joke with them now that I had counted on one of them to give me a kidney if I needed one, but I guess only my son can do that. I'd love to say nothing has changed between us, but I'd be lying. Feels different for all of us. It'll never be how it was, but we'll figure it out. That's kind of where I am. It's Friday afternoon at about 3:30, and I'm taking off for the weekend. Should the department head bail at 3:30? Nope, that looks bad. Do I give a damn? Nope. By the way, I also wear jeans and Skechers shoes to work every day now, even though I was a suit-wearing executive and all the other directors and up still are. Do I give a damn what they think about what I'm wearing? Nope. Not in the least. It's comfortable, so that's how it is. Suicidal thoughts are long gone, for those who asked. I do feel much better these days. Just very different. Everyone have a great weekend. I know I will, because I make my own fun now. Now on to the next story. Story 6. I collected evidence of my wife's affair for months before filing for divorce. Paid off massively. With several break-ins throughout nearby neighborhoods, I thought it would be wise to get a security system. I went ahead and purchased a wireless one and set up the smoke alarms and each of the doors with open/close sensors. My wife had been after me for a while to replace the smoke alarms, but when I told her about the sensors, she went ballistic. She couldn't articulate why she thought they were a bad idea, but she wasn't comfortable at all with them in place. I couldn't see any sense in this. I consulted a friend about the issue. After hearing me out, he was in the same boat as me. It didn't make any logical sense to not have the door sensors, but this is where the course of my life changed. After some thoughtful silence, my friend asked me, "Have you ever thought there may be someone else coming and going while you're not there? It seems to me that she doesn't want you to see this activity," giving reason for her discomfort with the sensors. Rather than punching him for accusing her, I just grumbled, but it nagged at me every day. 1 week later, I had a business trip overnight for 3 nights. When I checked the alarm system in the evening, it wasn't online. I checked it the next morning, and it was back online. I saw all of this and didn't say anything to her, but it repeated the next 2 evenings. Offline and then back online. I mentioned this to my friend. He said, "Alarm systems aren't that flaky. Don't you think it's strange that it's offline when you are away but never has this issue when you're around?" So I went to the store and got a camera to hook up to the system and set the camera facing the system itself so that I could see if my wife was manually turning it off. I was tempted to tell her about it, but I didn't. The following week, I had a day trip, and the home system went offline again, but this time I had a recording. I visually saw my wife disconnecting it. My friend that I've been chatting with about all of this happens to be a lawyer. If it weren't for him, I'd be screwed. I went to confront her with my suspicions immediately, but my friend told me, "No. I have enough evidence. You have to be patient." I asked him, "How will I ever get the evidence if she's turning it off?" He said, "Get a decoy," and explained it. So I bought another hub for the security system, put the original under the counter and out of sight, but hooked up the new one as though it was the original. I was too anxious to see if it would work, so I told her I had another day trip. The next day, I left for the day and stayed out of sight. Sure enough, she appeared on the recording turning it off, but I got the system logs that the door opened and sensors triggered. I had her, but my friend told me that I still didn't have enough, so I was very patient and set the rest of it up in stages, each time letting her get away with it and each time gathering more and more evidence. I got another camera for the system, a wireless one, and placed it facing the entry door. Then it triggered over several more discoveries. I learned she was having a male guest. He was parking his car several streets over, and I found out which one was his. My friend told me it's easier to put a GPS on his car, which is illegal, but better than trying to follow him and get caught doing it. So I waited and told my wife I would be working in the city 40 miles away for the rest of the week. I took a week off from work that day. The lover came over, and I put a GPS on his car. It would ping my hub once a minute for the next several days. I traced it on my laptop in real time. When he was at home, the GPS gave me an exact location in our state. We can look up property information online and find who owns the property. So now I have my wife's secret lover's name and his wife's name. They've been married for 17 years, with all their kids in high school. Then I put the wireless camera in our bedroom, only to find out they weren't using our bed, but in our walk-in closet, which is spacious enough to get the job done. The camera picked up the audio but not the video. I captured some video though, such as them leaving the closet naked, but not actually in the act. I waited for her to leave for shopping one day and repositioned the camera in the closet. I caught them in full glory the next time he came over. Now, when my friend told me, while I had enough evidence, she will still put up a denial because she doesn't want to get him in trouble with his wife, so she'll dig in, and your best bet is to bundle. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My dad left me his business in his will. I discovered he was embezzling money and reported it. Now my siblings hate me, and my uncle disclosed a family secret. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am. My name is Rebecca, 32F, and my life has taken a series of unexpected turns that I'm still struggling to process. It all started when my beloved grandmother, Evelyn, 78F, passed away 3 months ago. She wasn't just my grandmother. She was my rock, my confidant, and my best friend. Evelyn raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was just 8 years old. She was a strong, independent woman who had built a successful real estate business from the ground up. Despite the tragedy that brought us together, she made sure I had a loving and stable childhood. We spent countless evenings baking cookies, tending to her prized rose garden, and sharing stories about her youth. She taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and always being true to myself. As I grew older, our relationship evolved. We became more like friends, sharing our hopes, dreams, and fears. I confided in her about my struggles in school, my first heartbreak, and my career aspirations. She was always there with a warm hug and words of wisdom that seemed to make everything better. When I graduated college and landed my first job at a marketing firm, Evelyn was there in the front row, beaming with pride. She even helped me put a down payment on my first apartment, insisting that it was an investment in my future. That was just the kind of person she was, always thinking of others and how she could help them succeed. Her passing left a void in my life that I'm still trying to fill. The pain is raw, and there are days when I catch myself reaching for the phone to call her, only to remember she's gone. It's during these moments that I miss her the most. In the midst of my grief, I received news that Evelyn had left behind a substantial inheritance for me, my cousins Mark, 35M, and Sarah, 29F. To be honest, I didn't care much about the money. I would trade every penny just to have one more conversation with her, to hear her laugh one more time, or to feel her comforting embrace. This inheritance has brought out the worst in my cousins. Growing up, we were never particularly close. Mark and Sarah's parents, my aunt and uncle, were always a bit resentful of the close relationship I had with Evelyn. They felt she favored me, which created a wedge between us cousins from an early age. Now, with the inheritance in play, that old resentment has bubbled to the surface. Mark and Sarah seem to think that I'm going to get the lion's share of the estate, and they're determined to make my life miserable because of it. They've been spreading rumors within the family, claiming that I manipulated Evelyn in her final years to secure a larger portion for myself. It's hurtful and couldn't be further from the truth. What they don't understand is that Evelyn and I shared a bond that went beyond material possessions. She was the one who held my hand through my first heartbreak when my high school boyfriend cheated on me. She was there to celebrate with me when I landed my dream job at a prestigious advertising agency. And she was my shoulder to cry on when I went through a painful divorce 5 years ago. Speaking of my ex-husband, Jason, 34M, that's another complication in this mess. We met in college and fell head over heels for each other. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to complement me perfectly. Evelyn adored him at first, but as the years went by, she started to notice things that I was too blinded by love to see. Our marriage started to crumble about 3 years in. Jason became increasingly focused on climbing the corporate ladder, often at the expense of our relationship. He'd work late nights, miss important events, and when he was home, he was always distracted by work emails or phone calls. I tried to be understanding, but I felt like I was losing my partner. Evelyn was the one who finally opened my eyes to the reality of my situation. She gently pointed out how unhappy I had become and encouraged me to stand up for myself. It was her support that gave me the strength to confront Jason about our issues and ultimately file for divorce when it became clear that he wasn't willing to change. Now, in a twist that I never saw coming, Jason has resurfaced. He reached out to me last week, expressing his condolences about Evelyn and asking to meet up for coffee. At first, I thought he was genuinely concerned, but then he started asking questions about the inheritance. It became clear that he was fishing for information, probably hoping there might be something in it for him. I'm hurt and angry that he would try to take advantage of my grief like this. It's a stark reminder of why our marriage fell apart in the first place. His actions have only added to the stress and emotional turmoil I'm already dealing with. To make matters worse, my cousins seem to have formed an alliance with Jason. I overheard a phone conversation between Mark and Jason where they were discussing strategies to contest the will. It feels like I'm being attacked from all sides, and the one person I would turn to for advice is no longer here. I'm trying to stay strong and honor Evelyn's memory by handling this situation with the grace and dignity she always exemplified, but it's hard. There are moments when I feel overwhelmed by the betrayal and greed surrounding me. I've been throwing myself into work, trying to distract myself from the family drama. My colleagues have noticed that something's off, but I'm not ready to share the full extent of what's happening. It feels too personal. In the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts, I find myself wondering what Evelyn would do in this situation. She always had a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of the matter. I can almost hear her voice telling me to stay true to myself and not let others' actions dictate my own. As I navigate this challenging time, I'm trying to focus on the positive memories I have with Evelyn. I've started a journal where I write down all the little things I remember about her. The way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, her famous apple pie recipe, the sound of her humming as she worked in her garden. It's helping me process my grief and reminding me of the values she instilled in me. I know I need to address the situation with my cousins and ex-husband head-on, but I'm not sure how to proceed. Part of me wants to confront them about their behavior, to make them see how hurtful and disrespectful their actions are, not just to me but to Evelyn's memory. Another part of me wants to take the high road, to handle everything through legal channels and minimize my direct interactions with them. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm focusing on honoring Evelyn's legacy by living the values she taught me: kindness, integrity, and resilience. I'm determined not to let this inheritance drama tarnish the beautiful memories I have of her or the lessons she imparted. As I sit here surrounded by photo albums and mementos of our time together, I can't help but feel a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness for the loss of such an incredible woman and gratitude for having had her in my life for as long as I did. Whatever happens with the inheritance, I know that the real treasure is the love and wisdom Evelyn shared with me. That's something no one can take away. Date 1. It's been a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who offered kind words and advice. Your support has been a bright spot during this challenging time. The situation with my cousins, Mark and Sarah, has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Last week, we had the official reading of Evelyn's will at her lawyer's office. As we all suspected, Evelyn left the majority of her estate to me, including control of her real estate business. She did leave substantial amounts to Mark and Sarah, but nowhere near what they were expecting. The moment the lawyer finished reading the will, chaos erupted. Sarah burst into tears, dramatically accusing me of manipulating Evelyn. Mark, red-faced with anger, started shouting about how unfair it was and threatened to contest the will. It was a scene straight out of a bad movie, and I felt embarrassed for them. What hurt the most wasn't their reaction to the inheritance, but the things they said about my relationship with Evelyn. They accused me of being a gold digger and claimed that I had isolated Evelyn from the rest of the family in her final years. Nothing could be further from the truth. Evelyn chose to spend time with me because we genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We had shared interests and values that went beyond family obligation. I tried to reason with them, reminding them of all the times Evelyn had been there for them too. I mentioned the lavish wedding gift she gave Sarah and how she had helped Mark with a down payment on his house. But they were too blinded by greed and resentment to listen. The most shocking moment came when Sarah revealed that she and my ex-husband, Jason, had been secretly dating for the past 6 months. She spat it out like a weapon, clearly hoping to hurt me, and I'll admit it did sting. Not because I still had feelings for Jason, but because of the betrayal from both of them. I took a deep breath, remembering Evelyn's advice about maintaining dignity in difficult situations. I calmly told them that I hoped they would be happy together and that I wished them well. The look of disappointment on their faces when they realized their revelation hadn't had the desired effect was almost comical. After the reading, I retreated to Evelyn's house, now my house, to process everything that had happened. As I sat in her favorite armchair, surrounded by her belongings, I felt a wave of determination wash over me. I realized that I needed to step up and take control of the situation, just as Evelyn would have done. The next day, I called a family meeting. I invited Mark, Sarah, their parents, and even Jason. I wanted to clear the air and set some boundaries moving forward. To my surprise, they all showed up. I started by acknowledging their hurt and disappointment. I reminded them of the wonderful woman Evelyn was and how she would be devastated to see her family torn apart like this. Then I laid out my plans for the future. I explained that I intended to honor Evelyn's wishes by taking over the real estate business. I offered Mark and Sarah positions in the company if they were interested, making it clear that they would need to earn their place just like any other employee. I also proposed setting up a family foundation in Evelyn's name, using a portion of the inheritance to support causes she cared about. Their reactions were mixed. My aunt and uncle seemed relieved that I was extending an olive branch. Mark remained skeptical but didn't outright reject the idea. Sarah and Jason, however, were unmoved. They accused me of trying to buy their loyalty and stormed out of the meeting. After everyone left, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had done what I could to mend fences, and now the ball was in their court. I knew Evelyn would be proud of how I handled the situation. The following week, I dove headfirst into learning about the real estate business. Evelyn had left detailed notes and instructions, and her longtime assistant, Martha, 55F, has been incredibly helpful in showing me the ropes. It's been challenging but rewarding work, and I feel closer to Evelyn as I follow in her footsteps. To my surprise, Mark reached out a few days ago. He apologized for his behavior at the will reading and expressed interest in the position I had offered. We're meeting next week to discuss the details. I'm cautiously optimistic about this development. Sarah and Jason, on the other hand, have been spreading malicious gossip about me and the family on social media. It's hurtful, but I'm trying not to let it get to me. I've blocked them on all platforms and asked mutual friends not to relay their messages to me. As for the inheritance itself, I've decided to use a significant portion to set up a scholarship fund in Evelyn's name. Local community college education was always important to her, and I know this would make her happy. The first scholarships will be awarded next fall, and I'm excited to see the impact it will have on deserving students. There's still a long road ahead, but I feel like I'm finally starting to find my footing. Evelyn's strength and wisdom continue to guide me, and I'm determined to make her proud. I miss her every day, but I'm grateful for the legacy she left me. Not just in terms of material wealth, but in the values and love she instilled in me. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some significant developments in my situation. Life has a way of surprising us, and the past few months have certainly been full of unexpected twists and turns. First, the good news. Mark has been working at the real estate company for the past 2 months, and I'm pleased to say it's going better than I expected. There was some initial awkwardness, but we've managed to establish a professional relationship. He's shown a genuine interest in learning the business and has even come up with some innovative ideas for expanding our market reach. It's not all smooth sailing. We still have our disagreements, but we're learning to communicate better and focus on our shared goal of honoring Evelyn's legacy. Now for the more complicated part. Remember how Sarah and Jason had been dating? Well, that relationship imploded spectacularly about a month ago. Sarah showed up at my door in tears. She confessed that Jason had only been using her to try and get information about the inheritance. Apparently, he thought she might have inside knowledge that could help him contest the will. I was torn between feeling vindicated and feeling sorry for Sarah. Despite our differences, she's still my cousin, and I could see how devastated she was. In a moment of compassion, or perhaps temporary insanity, I invited her in for a cup of tea. We ended up talking for hours, really talking for the first time in years. Sarah opened up about her insecurity and jealousy towards me, stemming from childhood. She always felt like she was living in my shadow, especially when it came to Evelyn's affection. It was a breakthrough moment for both of us. While it didn't erase all the hurt of the past few months, it was a start towards rebuilding our relationship. As for Jason, his true colors have well and truly shown. He's been going around town bad-mouthing me to anyone who will listen. He's even tried to contact some of the clients of the real estate business, spreading lies about the company's financial stability. Thankfully, most people see through his desperation, but it's still a headache I didn't need. On a brighter note, the scholarship fund I set up in Evelyn's name is already making a difference. We awarded the first round of scholarships last month, and meeting the recipients was incredibly moving. One young woman in particular reminded me so much of Evelyn, with her determination and kindness. It felt like a sign that I'm on the right path. The family foundation is also up and running. We've partnered with a local animal shelter. Evelyn was always a huge animal lover, and funded the construction of a new wing to house more rescued pets. Seeing Evelyn's name on the building brought tears to my eyes, but they were happy tears this time. Running the real estate business has been a steep learning curve, but I'm starting to find my groove. Martha, Evelyn's assistant, has been an absolute godsend. She's patient with my questions and always seems to know just what Evelyn would do in any given situation. We've even started having weekly lunch dates where she shares stories about Evelyn that I've never heard before. It's like getting little pieces of my grandmother back one at a time. There have been moments of doubt, times when I've wondered if I'm cut out for all of this responsibility. But then I'll catch a glimpse of Evelyn's photo on my desk or remember one of her sage pieces of advice, and I feel reinvigorated. I'm doing this for her, but I'm also doing it for myself, growing in ways I never thought possible. As for my personal life, I've been so focused on the business and family drama that dating hasn't even been on my radar. But last week, I bumped into an old friend from college, Alex, 33M, at a local coffee shop. We got to talking, and before I knew it, hours had passed. It was nice to connect with someone who knew me before all this inheritance trauma. Someone who sees me for who I am, not what I've inherited. We've made plans to meet up again next week, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking back on the past few months, I'm amazed at how much has changed. There's still tension with some family members, and Jason continues to be a thorn in my side, but overall, I feel like I'm finally finding my footing. Evelyn's legacy is more than just the material things she left behind. It's the strength and resilience she instilled in me. I'm determined to make her proud, not just by running the business successfully but by living up to the values she taught me. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that things have continued to improve, although not without a few bumps along the way. The real estate business is thriving. Mark and I have found a good rhythm working together, and our different perspectives often lead to creative solutions. Last month, we closed a deal on a major commercial property that Evelyn had been pursuing for years. It felt like a sign that we were on the right track. Sarah has been making efforts to repair our relationship. She's been coming to family dinners and even volunteered to help with the scholarship fund. It's still a bit awkward at times, but I can see she's genuinely trying. Last week, she confided in me about a job opportunity she's considering in another city. I was surprised to find myself feeling a little sad at the thought of her moving away. We've come a long way from where we were a year ago. Jason finally backed off after I had my lawyer send him a cease and desist letter. I haven't heard from him in months, and honestly, it's a relief. I hope he's moved on and found some peace. The scholarship fund continues to be a source of joy. We recently hosted a dinner for the recipients and their families. Hearing their stories and seeing their gratitude reminded me why I started this in the first place. One of the students even asked if she could intern at the real estate company next summer. It felt like everything was coming full circle. On a personal note, things with Alex have been progressing nicely. We've been dating for a few months now, and it's refreshing to be with someone who knew me before all this inheritance drama. He's supportive of my work with the business and the foundation, but he also reminds me to take time for myself. Last month, he surprised me with a weekend getaway to a little bed and breakfast in the countryside. It was the first time in ages that I truly relaxed. There are still moments when I miss Evelyn terribly. The other day, I found an old recipe card in one of her cookbooks with notes scribbled in her handwriting. I cried for a good hour, but they were cathartic tears. I'm learning that grief doesn't have an expiration date, and it's okay to still feel that loss deeply. Running the business has taught me so much about myself. I've discovered strengths I didn't know I had and faced challenges I never anticipated. There are days when I feel overwhelmed, but then I'll remember something Evelyn used to say: "You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails." It always gives me the push I need to keep going. The Family Foundation has started a new project, renovating an old community center in an underprivileged neighborhood. It's been amazing to see how this work has brought our family together. Even my aunt and uncle, who were initially skeptical of my leadership, have been enthusiastically involved in the planning. As I reflect on everything that's happened since Evelyn passed, I'm filled with a mix of emotions. There's still sadness, of course, but also gratitude, pride, and hope. I'm grateful for the legacy Evelyn left me, proud of how I've handled the challenges thrown my way, and hopeful for the future. I know there will be more obstacles ahead. Running a business, managing a foundation, navigating family dynamics. None of it is easy, but I feel prepared to face whatever comes my way. Evelyn gave me the tools I need, and I'm determined to use them to make a positive impact. To anyone out there facing similar family conflicts or unexpected responsibilities, I want to say, hang in there. It might feel overwhelming now, but with patience, perseverance, and a commitment to your values, you can get through it, and you might just surprise yourself with what you're capable of along the way. Thank you all for following my journey and for your support. It's meant more than you know. Here's to honoring the legacies of those we've lost by living our best lives, just as they would have wanted us to. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I'm a 36-year-old guy. The other night, something happened that's got me feeling all mixed up. My wife, who's 33, had a bit too much to drink and ended up saying something pretty big. She told me that when we got married, I wasn't her first choice. Actually, she really wanted to be with my buddy, Ty, but it didn't work out, so she ended up with me. Yeah, pretty heavy, right? This all went down while my family was around, which made it super awkward. But then her sister quickly stepped in, tried to laugh it off and said she was just joking. But here's the thing. I've always had this little voice in my head wondering if she truly loved me. And now hearing this, that voice has gotten a lot louder. So now I'm stuck. I've got all these feelings and thoughts swirling around, and I don't know how to talk to her about it. How do you even start a conversation like that? Now for the top advice before reading the update. That's absolutely awful. I'm so sorry. How do I even begin to confront her about this? Do you even want to stay in this marriage after that? No, but I need to be sure. It seems you're already very sure. You're just looking to go from 99% to 100% sure. Problem is that will depend on getting her to come clean, and she is unlikely to do that. Getting that last 1% is not going to be worth the trouble it's going to cause. Why isn't likely? I mean, there's no freaking way. Last resort means you're the security and stability. She's not giving that up. See a lawyer. Let her know her last resort is going to find someone who considers you their first choice. To bring someone specific up, this is eventually going to end anyway. Why not save your dignity and be the one to do it? If you don't, that girl out there who would be so happy to be with you and respect you will never get it. Don't wait until you're both in your late 30s. Every time you let your guard down around her, this will sneak back in and start breaking bones inside of your mind. Tell her you don't want to settle for someone who would treat you that way, and mean it. Also, I am sorry this happened to you. Clearly your sister-in-law already knows this since she tried playing it off as soon as this truth came out. I personally be in talks with a divorce lawyer and try to take as much as I can from her that belongs to me and serve her. That would single-handedly seal the deal from me. Sorry, man. This was my first thought as well, that the sister-in-law knew about this for a long time, possible even before you got married. Here's what's going to happen. Your sister-in-law is going to tell your wife about her drunk confession as soon as your wife sobers up. I'm guessing that either sister-in-law took your wife with her to say to get over the hangover, or she stayed overnight so that she can talk to her first thing in the morning, or she may have sent your wife a text to call your sister-in-law as soon as your wife wakes up. I think your sister-in-law may try to talk to your wife first before you get a chance to. Then your wife is going to be extra nice to you for a couple of weeks. She has already rehearsed what she's going to say to you when you ask her about it eventually. So when you ask your wife, she's probably going to minimize everything and make you look like a fool. She may even say that, but I chose you, as if chosen by her as a badge of honor. Anyway, what you do at this point is up to you. I wouldn't stay. Now for the update. So there's a really important lesson I've learned from all of this mess. When you mix together not talking things out properly, feeling unsure about yourself, and then throwing some drinks into the mix, you're setting yourself up for a pretty rough time. I decided it was time to stop keeping all these heavy feelings to myself and just talk to her about everything that was going on inside my head. I told her straight up how I was feeling. Really down and not too good about myself. The cool thing is she totally gets me. She's been there for me, accepting all my insecurities and my bouts of feeling really low, and on my side. I'm really trying to work on getting better. Here's the thing about her. She's the only person who's ever really seen the real me, not just the front I put up for everyone else. And she didn't hold back the truth for me, even though she knew it was going to sting. Turns out I wasn't her dream guy from the get-go. In fact, I was kind of like the backup plan. She thought I kind of knew this all along. But man, I really had no clue. She had met Ty before she ever met me. Back then, she was going through a really rough patch, feeling super alone and unhappy. So basically, this whole situation has been like opening up a can of worms, but it's also been a big eye-opener about how we need to really talk things out and be honest with each other, even when it's tough. So before all of this went down, my wife had been through a lot with guys. She had her heart broken so many times that she was pretty much ready to throw in the towel on dating. She was at a point where she thought she'd end up alone and was okay with not dating guys anymore. She was interested in me, but I didn't even notice she was there, no matter how much she tried to get my attention. While she was trying to get Ty to notice her, she ended up running into me. Ty and I were best friends back then. But here's the kicker. Ty never even saw her the way she wanted him to. He was totally clueless about how she felt. So after a while, she decided to stop chasing Ty and ended up asking me out for drinks instead. And guess what? We hit it off way more than she expected. She realized that we had a really good connection, and soon after, she figured out that she had actually made the perfect choice by being with me. She fell for me hard. She doesn't usually go around telling everyone this story because it's pretty personal, and she feels like it's not everyone's business. Plus, she feels kind of embarrassed that she spent so much time chasing after Ty when I was right there all along. She told me all this because she wanted me to know the whole truth, even if it was a bit awkward and took her some time to come around to seeing how great we are together. My wife spent so much time chasing after a guy, Ty, who didn't even realize she existed. And the funny thing is she didn't really know him that well. It wasn't like she knew his favorite color or anything deep about him. It was more about how she felt attracted to him, kind of like a crush that didn't have much to stand on. She's only ever talked about this with her sister, which makes sense why her sister tried to brush it off that night. It's a personal story, not meant for everyone to hear. To the rest of my family, they probably think our relationship was a fairy tale kind of deal, love at first sight and all that. But knowing the real story, it feels super weird to even think about saying it out loud sometimes. I wonder if she's making this up, but deep down I believe her. If I start questioning her story, it's like I'm questioning everything. Plus, everything she's told me fits with what I remember from when we first met. We've built a life together. We have 2 kids, a whole family. I don't want to get caught up in doubts and what-ifs, but I'll be real. I did start to doubt our relationship when she first told me all this. It's hard not to let those negative thoughts creep in. From my perspective, I met her when she was still into Ty. She was someone I worked with, and I thought she was pretty cute, but it seemed like she wasn't interested in me at all. I didn't really push for anything because of that. Ty, the guy my wife used to chase, didn't find her attractive and found her kind of annoying. He never gave her the time of day. After a while, my wife got tired of trying to get Ty's attention and started talking to me instead. One day she suggested we go out for drinks. And that's when we discovered how much we had in common and felt this amazing connection. Everything just clicked from there, and the rest, as they say, is history. Now about the worries of cheating, especially with Ty, well, considering they don't really get along, I seriously doubt that's happening. Plus, time has passed, and let's just say Ty hasn't exactly aged like fine wine, while I was lucky enough to get married. So when it comes to her possibly not loving me, I know deep down these thoughts mainly come up when I'm drunk. Drinking brings out all my insecurities and makes me think all sorts of irrational thoughts, like she doesn't really love me. But these thoughts don't stop with her. They go on to tell me our kids and everyone else probably can't stand me either. It's a really toxic way to think, and I know it's something I need to change. Thankfully, she's been incredibly supportive, helping me through my struggles with insecurity and depression. It's tough, but I'm working on battling these negative voices in my head. She's done so much to help me see the value in myself and our relationship. Now for the closing comments. To me, that sounds like a plausible story. We all do stupid crap, and some of us chase after the wrong person, but still, I can understand how hurtful this type of thing can be. On the other hand, it doesn't sound like you were the last resort either. Maybe at that specific time when you first met, but she did fall for you, didn't she? You should definitely work on your mental issues, and if you're already doing it, keep doing it. Only good can come out of it. She was young and depressed. I seriously doubt she'd swear off guys forever. You should definitely work on your mental issues, and if you're already doing it, keep doing it. Only good can come out of it. I've been trying. It's difficult. She sees me for who I am and loves me for it. She's done a lot to help me when I'm down. What I read here is this. She saw a guy and wanted him. He didn't want her. Then you two got to know each other. It wasn't love at first sight. It rarely is. But the more she learned to know you, the more she fell in love with you, which is wonderful. To be honest, that sounds a heck of a lot different than your first post, just as well as that you were the last resort is not right. You just weren't in love at first sight, but she still fell in love with you, just like you fell in love with her. I was one of those who told you to separate for some time after I saw your first post. Now I think that you two just need to be more open to each other. Getting rid of your insecurities also means that you allow her to be open to you without you judging how she feels about a certain something. I doubt that she is cheating or that she is only with you because you were convenient. She just learned that you have qualities that are not visible on the outside, and she values you for that. I somehow doubt that you already realize how much that is worth. You aren't her last resort. You are just the last man who she dated since she then made a decision for life for you. No more need to date. Good luck and stay strong. Absolutely. She was lusting after Ty, but never knew anything about him. She said she fell for him because he was nice to her and helped show her the ropes at work. Once they got to know each other, which was long after we were dating, she realized they had nothing even remotely in common, and it was beyond stupid to ever chase him. They weren't compatible. One of the reasons she and I had such chemistry was I was the only person who understood her and vice versa. She was lonely and had been all her life. She never really had friends. Her sister was always busy with friends and her parents working. Deep down, she too suffers from being insecure and depressed. Every relationship she ever had failed miserably. Either they cheated on her or only used her for pleasure. We kind of just connected from the first date. I think her answer is not only plausible but incredibly common. A lot of people wind up falling for and marrying someone that they wouldn't have initially said, "This is my ideal spouse," settling in a sense, but it's not a bad thing. With dating experience, sometimes you find out that what you really need in a partner is completely different from what you thought you wanted or the traits that you found superficially attractive when you were younger. It sounds like your wife's feelings for Ty were just a crush, though an obsessive one maybe, and that essentially means nothing. I'm guessing she was either young or inexperienced/immature at the time, and she just picked out a guy she was physically attracted to and projected desirable traits onto him. We've all done this with a crush. It's just a fantasy and doesn't mean you want to marry that person in reality. Now on to the next story. Story 9. I'm 28 years old, and I'm super excited because I'm getting married in just a few months. My fiancé and I have been planning this wedding for a while, and we're aiming for a fairly formal indoor ceremony and reception. We want everything to be perfect. Beautiful venue, delicious food, good music, and of course, all our friends and family there to celebrate with us. One of my closest friends, Lisa, who is 26, has been a huge part of my life. She's been there for me through thick and thin, and I consider her more like a sister than just a friend. Lisa has a German Shepherd named Max, and let me tell you, she absolutely adores this dog. Max is not just a pet to her, he's family. He's a big, lovable dog with tons of energy. Sometimes his energy can be a bit overwhelming, but he's always sweet and well-meaning. So, a few weeks ago, Lisa and I were chatting about the wedding, and out of the blue, she asked if she could bring Max to the wedding. She explained that Max is a huge part of her life, and she couldn't imagine leaving him alone for the whole day while she was at my wedding. She felt that since he's part of her family, he should be part of my special day too. Now, I really love Max, and I understand how attached Lisa is to him, but I had some serious concerns. First of all, our wedding venue has a strict no pets policy. They don't allow any pets inside the building, and it's not something we can negotiate. Secondly, our wedding is going to be pretty formal, and I'm worried about how some of our guests might feel about having a big, energetic dog at the event. Not everyone is comfortable around dogs, and I don't want anyone to feel uneasy or distracted during the ceremony or reception. I tried to explain all of this to Lisa as gently as I could. I told her about the venue's rules and shared my worries about the potential disruptions. I thought she'd understand my perspective, but instead, she got really upset. She accused me of being inconsiderate and not understanding how important Max is to her. She insisted that she'd keep Max on a leash and make sure he didn't bother anyone. She even offered to keep him outside if necessary. Despite her insistence, I stood my ground. I told her that we had to follow the venue's rules and that it just wouldn't be practical to have Max there. But Lisa wouldn't drop the subject. She kept pushing, saying that she couldn't attend the wedding if Max wasn't allowed to come. This put me in a really tough spot because I didn't want to lose my friend over this, but I also couldn't see a way to accommodate her request. I started to talk to my family and other friends about the situation to get their advice. Most of them agreed with me, saying that it wouldn't be appropriate to have a dog at a formal event, especially with the venue's no pets policy. They felt that Lisa was being unreasonable by insisting on bringing Max and threatening not to come if she couldn't. The more I thought about it, the more complicated it seemed. Even if the venue allowed pets, there were still so many other factors to consider. What if Max got too excited and started barking during the ceremony? What if some guests were allergic to dogs or just didn't like them? And what if Max accidentally knocked something over or caused some other kind of disruption? The last thing I wanted on my wedding day was any kind of chaos. But I also tried to see things from Lisa's perspective. She's always been a bit different when it comes to Max, treating him like her child. For her, leaving Max alone for an entire day felt like abandoning him. She's had Max for years, and he's been with her through a lot of tough times. I get that she feels a deep connection to him and wants him to be part of every important moment in her life. The situation escalated when Lisa told me flat out that she wouldn't come to the wedding if Max couldn't be there. I was heartbroken. I didn't want to imagine my wedding day without one of my best friends there, but I also couldn't see any way to make it work. I was caught between respecting the rules of the venue, the comfort of my guests, and my friendship with Lisa. I've been feeling really stuck. I don't want to hurt Lisa's feelings, but I also need to consider what's best for my wedding and all my other guests. The stress of planning a wedding is already high, and this added drama with Lisa and Max has been making it even harder. So here I am, sharing this long story with you all, hoping for some advice or insight. How do I handle this without damaging my friendship with Lisa? Is there a compromise I'm not seeing? Any suggestions or thoughts would be really appreciated because I want my wedding day to be special and for everyone, including Lisa, to be happy. Thanks for listening to all the details. It's been a tough situation, and just getting it all out there helps a bit. I'm looking forward to any advice or perspectives you can share. Am I the idiot for telling my friend she can't bring her dog to my wedding, even though it means she might not attend? We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.